Hello and welcome to Who Are You? This is a Babylon 5 watchcast hosted by two former strangers, now friends, who've gotten to know each other while rewatching a favorite show from their childhood, Babylon 5. I'm Xhafer.
And I'm Laura.
And today we have...
It's me. I'm Ryan here from Yum Yum Podcast, and I'm joined by my wife. It's Rachel. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, everybody. Hello.
Hello. Welcome back, guys.
We returned on your behalf. You said, "Hey, season 4 exists. Do you want to come in for it?" And I'm like, "Yeah. Can I also get another real late season entry for that too?"
Sure,
Mhm.
yeah.
Sure. Do you want an early season 5 one? Because I'm going to start asking about that soon, so...
Oh yeah. Only Byron episodes, please.
In that case, you might be doing that one on your own, honey.
But remember Byron?
I do.
It's funny
I don't
because-
need to be reminded. I remember.
It is funny because on our show, Yum Yum Podcast, we are, as of this recording, making our way through the early stages of season 5. So it's like, oh, I'm living it right now, buddy. I'm living the Lockley life, as we call it on the pod. The Loch life, the Loch Ness, And yeah, but it's great to be back here. I've been hungry to come back on and talk with you guys again and, just rip into some classic B5 action.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this episode is packed with it. But first, we have to ask you a question. What do you want?
You still haven't answered my question, Ambassador. What do you want?
Well, what do you mean, what do I want?
What do you want?
You really want to know what I want? You really want to know the truth?
I wanna really wanna zig ah.
Does that answer your question?
Yum yum, of course.
But what about Yum Yum do you want?
Just more of it. More authentic. Yum yum, which is just weird but good and fun and sexiness.
Yeah, I like that in TV shows too. Like when you just have like a random, weird, crazy non sequitur thing like that. Marcus is great for that in Babylon 5.
Yeah.
He'll just casually tell you he's a virgin, and then you have to accept that, by the way. You have to accept he's a virgin. Yeah, Jason Carter. Yeah, the virgin. Sure, I can believe it. And yeah, I also want the Yum Yum, of course. In fact, I want JMS in whatever future projects of Babylon 5 to have a character say Yum Yum, and then look at the camera and then wink, just for me, personally. But one of the major things I want is Nagrath back. I miss him.
Yeah.
He went down, apparently, and I'm so upset about that. One of my favorite YouTube videos of all time is called R.I.P. Nagrath, in which it's a 90-second shit post somebody made about Nagrath and how he's gone, and they mourn him, and there's tears, and people just wailing in pain. And I think about that big bug man. I know the prop got reused for Buffy, and it's like there was a she-mantis, or whatever the name of it is. Because Buffy's a really clever show, by the way. Real smart. And one of the interesting things is, I think it's like an episode or two from now, the actress in that episode of Buffy who plays like the human version of this bug monster shows up in B5. So it's like, hey, you have the only actor ever to play the humanized version of Nagrath. Isn't that fun?
I want Nagrath back too. That's my reboot wish list right there.
Yeah, I hope that we didn't get a chance to talk about it earlier, but we were on the League of Non-Aligned Podcasts recording earlier today, and I missed the end bit where presumably we talked about things we want from future animated movies, and Nagrath is very high on my list there.
Walker Smith, a close second.
Give me a TKO movie that's just like fighting. Just that, whatever that martial art was, that's escaping me at the moment.
Muay Thai.
Muay.
Yeah,
Thank
Muay Thai.
you. The Muay Thai. I want a Muay Thai movie animated. Give me that shit, JMS.
But keep the Shiva part in. You can't remove that part of it. In fact, double down on it.
But like, you have to get John Cena as a voice, right?
You have to get wrestling person in.
Yeah,
Fighter.
But my pick's John Cena over The Rock.
The Rock's too busy. He already did Voyager. That's his sci-fi entry.
his first real acting credit.
What a
Yeah.
credit.
I would pick maybe one of the lesser known guys as front. Like, I think LA Knight could have a lot of fun with it, but I don't expect most of our audience to be in tune with most professional wrestling, so that'll just be me over here. All right. Well, now that we know that you want, we can talk about Season 4, Episode 17, The Face of the Enemy. Did I always do episode titles like that, or did I just start it at some point? Do you remember?
I think it's a today thing.
It's a today thing.
But you put a lot of stank on the one you recorded earlier today, too.
I did, yeah. We open on Ivanova giving us the diary entry this time in our trio of diary entry opens we've gotten. Hers reads a little bit different than Sheridan's and Garibaldi's, though. Dear Diary, we continue to fuck up those who disagree with us. Love, Susie. That's it. That's all she needs.
Did anyone ever call her Susie in this show?
No. It's what she calls herself when she's a child in my headcanon of these diary entries that I've been doing.
Oh, nice.
There's a John Sheridan one, too, where he's clearly a child. He calls himself Johnny S. and stuff, like...
Because
I can imagine the ex-boyfriend calling her Susie.
Yeah, the Australian
yeah,
boyfriend.
Totally.
Listen here, Susie. Don't you want to hate those aliens like me and wear ugly apparel? Yeah. Johnny, I mean, his sister, who we never hear about again, Lizzie, used to call him Johnny. Remember Lizzie, who has never been referenced ever again in Babylon 5, including this episode in which it involves the safety of John's family. What happened to her?
Oh, you're so right.
Hello, I'm Anna's best friend and your sister. I'll see you again one day. I'm going to join the characters like Walker Smith and Duncan in the zone of we promise we'll be back one day but never return. Fuck you, continuity. Bye.
Probably for the best, though.
I mean, you could have kidnapped 2 people in this episode. We
I
could at
don't
least got a name
think
drop.
Garibaldi has the capability of arranging the kidnapping of 2 people with unlimited money, as he barely managed this one.
Yeah, and it was just the medication that gave the lead.
True.
Yeah.
True.
It would be a bit weird if it's just like, and his sister also has that same medication, so we can
No.
track her down too.
I think Lizzie got away scot-free because the name Elizabeth Sheridan is so generic that the Clark regime didn't even know to look for her. There's so many Lizzie Sheridans out there. Who cares? Just let her go.
She's just hiding in the cornfields at the farm.
Right.
She's shopping with the mum.
Yeah.
Right.
She's always fucking shopping.
After this diary entry, we see Garibaldi, and we get a little bit of recap on his mission for Edgar's to be brought into the inner circle. Papa Sheridan is in custody. They just need to lure John in now. He calls himself Judas Iscariot to theme, because subtle imagery is the name of the game in this one.
When you said to theme, you meant like to the theme song?
Yeah.
I thought you were like saying, he said he's like Judas Iscariot, to the theme of the story that
The message.
Sheridan is Jesus Christ and that he
also,
is betraying our Lord and
Yeah.
Savior.
Yeah.
We're really riding the Christ metaphors really hard with Sheridan these days.
Yeah.
Where does Zach Allen fit in the Apostles? That's the real question. Is he a Matthew? Is he a Thomas because he doubts a lot? He's like, oh, geez, I don't know about that.
I like that. Yeah. He also doesn't get an official book, right? Thomas doesn't. He's got an Apocrypha, I think. I don't know. I don't know the Catholic Bible very well, but
Zach doesn't know how to write, so he can't write a book.
there you go.
He's too busy ordering pizzas.
No, he would get Jakar to do his homework.
That's true.
Yeah. Jakar would write a good book. I mean, obviously.
He
Does,
did.
yeah.
He
Yeah.
did, does. I
Do.
combine, I merged the two.
He did those.
He did, does.
We cut over to some more space battling. Sheridan is surprised at the lack of surrender until one of the opposing captains tells him that they are all dead anyways because the crews of all of his destroyers are just replaced by Minbari. And then we get Captain Mackie jumping on the line to let Captain Leo Frank know that's all bullshit. I wish that just one morning in my whole life I wake up with the energy and gusto that Mackie gives us when he says, I'm alive here.
He's genuinely excited to be alive.
I wish I knew what that felt like.
Yeah. I don't even know if that actor could muster that when he wakes up on a daily basis. I feel like it's only a lie that you can tell other people.
He is such a good actor too, that guy. We talked about him on our show, and he's just one of those great character actors. He's been in everything. He's in The Big Lebowski, for Christ's sake. He's one of the cops.
He's
that's
everywhere.
like, yeah, so they took Ikaha. He just doesn't give a shit in that movie. But this is upsetting to me because it's like, hey, look, it's Mackie. Hey, remember Mackie? We're following through on this. And it's like, hey, Mackie, can you sort this situation out? And he's like, yes, I will, Sheridan. And this is my time on the show done.
Like, the first person they recruit is the ethics professor from the Earth Force Academy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I understand the captain's hesitance here, thinking that they're all going to be replaced with Minbari, as he is on a Minbari ship with all Minbari.
Yeah.
He's got to acknowledge there's some optics here. That,
Hey, Marcus is there.
Sheridan, yeah. Marcus is there. Sheridan's not really smart, is the thing. Remember,
No.
he's really good at thinking about optics. Yeah, let's let ISN on the station and let them run loose with cameras and editing software.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's really
They,
smart like
they
that.
can't do any more harm.
These fight with Earth Force ends, and as they surrender, the Agamemnon jumps in, signing up after finally catching up with Sheridan.
Yeah, this is a real tense moment. I couldn't remember if the Agamemnon was good or not.
He's like, I'm going over there, and Marcus is like, that's dumb.
You
What are you
sure?
doing?
Sure.
See, and this is called setup because he's going to do one really dumb thing early, so that when he does a really dumb thing later, you could say, well, it's in line with what we've seen in the episode itself,
when
that Sheridan
he
is
puts
dumb.
his trust.
Yes, in the people who served under him in the past, because the chain of command and their friendship means more than anything else.
Even though he's tearing down the chain of command.
I know.
Like, that's why he's there. Like, he's near Earth to destroy the chain of command, build it up again.
Yep.
But he's like, oh, nah. I did it right. I trust myself, so I trust them.
I trained them, damn it. My favorite part of this is how Bruce Boxleitner plays Sheridan like an eager young child who's got their birthday present, and it's the exact thing they wanted, because Sheridan is, we've heard it from day one. He would rather be on a warship flying around doing stuff than sitting behind a desk having to do paperwork. And so it's like, hey, it's my old ship. Yes.
He's still like, my console.
Yeah, it's mine.
It's mine.
Daddy Sheridan. It's mine.
Yeah, he goes back to his mothership.
True.
After this, we cut over to Mars, where Stephen and Lita have arrived at Mars Resistance HQ. Number One gets upset at bringing a Teep around when he introduces Lita, and then we see the cargo they brought are the modified shadow telepaths.
Yeah, if she thought one was bad.
Surprise.
Yeah, but now it's just a storage issue.
Yeah.
She clearly is not impressed that that Franklin brought a girl with him. She's like, hello, you and me. We're meant to be. And yet you've got this sexy redhead with you? What's this about? And she's a telepath? Not into this.
It's just like 3 strikes and you're out, Franklin.
Right.
It's not even his fault. He's trying his best.
Yeah, he's not going to have as good a trip this time, I think.
No honeymoon suite for him this time. Sheridan catches up with the Agamemnon's crew, noting that between his press release about Santiago's death being an assassination and the orders to attack civvies, it was pretty easy to see who was lying. Marcus calls to let Sheridan know he's got Garibaldi on FaceTime, and he transfers the call. Garibaldi tells him about his dad's capture. They have to move quick. He's got to come alone. Make your decision right now. Things are going. Sheridan operates under trust but verify, which is honestly just half trusting, but agrees to the terms. And the whole audience is like,
I know it was you, Fredo.
Garibaldi could not look more shifty if he tried. He's in darkness, he's sweating, he's like rubbing his hands, he's looking on side to side like, you gotta trust me,
And
John.
it's very
Shaky.
clearly rehearsed
Yeah, that's great.
Mhm.
as well. Like, he looks uncomfortable, but he has this look in his eyes like, what? I figured out the wording. What was the next? Yeah, this is the phrase that I want to use. Yeah, this is it.
This is what I love about Garibaldi as a character, though. He is the man who prepares or like tries to prepare as many outcomes to a conversation as possible. So
He
he's
rehearses
like,
it in his head.
rehearses these things.
If not out loud.
And his type of attitudes in life come to bite him in the ass, very much so, as we learn in this episode.
Yeah.
Ivanova tells Sheridan that this is stupid and that he's making a stupid decision.
Yeah.
As a lot of Sheridan decisions are.
Doesn't he know she's God?
No. He's the one that doesn't.
Ivanova is going to come and take over the fleet and lead it, so that way it's a human leading the forces when they eventually get to Earth, in case something happens to him, which it obviously will. The Agamemnon, being the most recent addition to the Resistance fleet, takes Sheridan to the meetup since they've still got like good clearance codes and stuff. No one knows that they've gone out on the lam yet.
Okay.
Although honestly, if I'm Clark and I haven't installed an entirely different crew on that ship, which would be like thing number 4 on my list when this rebellion starts to go down.
But he's a bad dictator. Like,
Edgar's does point this out.
Yes.
he's not good at being a dictator.
Yeah, and Morden's gone. Morden was running some of that show, right?
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Back on Mars, Lita is trying to be a polite third wheel and excuse herself, but number 1 is just too pissed off about any Psy-Corps bullshit. Lita fills Franklin in on some of the deep scans from the deep state, and he thought he had some rights against this and is shocked to learn that he doesn't. We get Lita recounting the story of her interning with the Psycops, including solving the murder with Bester, which we read. That was in our book club episode. So
That's what I thought.
Dear listener, go ahead and check out our book club episode on Psy-Corps Book 2, Deadly Relations, Bester Ascendant, and you can hear all about this there.
Have you all read any of the books?
I've read the Marcus Ivanova short story.
Oh.
Ooh.
I'm so sorry.
It was a choice that I made.
Wrong choice.
I wanted to ignore what everybody said. I wanted them to be wrong, so I had to read it for myself.
Uh-huh.
How'd that work out?
Not great.
JMS says it's canon, so sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, can't
well.
counteract him on this one.
I can do whatever the fuck I want.
I'm not going to argue with you. But...
You read the comics, right?
Yeah, I read a couple of the comics, and I read one of the Londo books.
Yeah, one of the Centauri
Yeah.
ones, and you said it was too bad to keep reading.
Yeah, it was a DNS for me.
Yeah, I have read the one written by JMS's wife, the one about Sinclair on Minbar.
Yeah.
To Dream in the City of Sorrows.
The other canon book.
Yeah. And you know, what I love about that book, because in part of that one is it's like, what happened to Catherine Sakai, everyone's favorite character, you know, Catherine Sakai. You know, Catherine, who's also the name of JMS's wife at that time, Catherine. It's a story about how she will try to rip through even time and space to get back with her man who has dedicated himself to a cause bigger than their romance. And I'm like, hints, Joe? Joe, you picking up hints there? No, I read his autobiography and he's like, no, we ended on a pretty mutual note. I'm like, Joe, she wrote a whole fucking book in your universe about this, I feel.
She's feeling a lot of things.
Orders come in from Babylon 5 letting them know that Ivanova is taking over the Resistance fleet right as Delenn arrives on the station to take control of Babylon 5.
Hey, she's back.
Yep.
She's taken control of Babylon 5 before, right? She there was that. I always find it funny when now like them breaking away from Earth when some of our main command characters aren't there, who they'll assign to be in charge of Babylon 5. It's like, hey, Zach, you have to take orders from Minbari Ambassador Delenn, by the way. What?
Delenn makes sense to me because Babylon 5 is functionally a ranger's station.
Yeah, at this
Mhm.
point.
And Delenn does lead the Rangers. So I get it that way, but that's the only way that works mentally for me. Every other excuse, every other possible scenario is just like, what is going on right now?
Where's Corwin?
He's only a lieutenant.
But once again, we got optics problems, guys.
She's just keeping an eye on things. She doesn't, like, Ivanova doesn't say, you're in charge. It's just like, help keep everything going. But we assume that, like, Corwin's going to be left in charge of CNC.
I guess.
Yeah.
Where's
Because he
Lou?
usually is.
Where's Lou when you need him?
Corwin's not ready.
John meets Michael at a space dive bar on Mars, which actually the decor of reminded me a lot of Space Dive here in Detroit, which I talked about on
Yeah.
Pod before. It was like one of the outside bars there, which was fun little nostalgia for me. Garibaldi puts some kind of skin patch sedative on Sheridan's hand, and he just gets way too high. Like that time I accidentally took too many edibles and watched the live action Cats. Everything just seems so far away, and it's really hard to get anywhere.
I remember you telling me about that.
Oh, yeah.
It's a slapper. They
yeah, that-
introduced these in season 1.
Yeah.
Garibaldi was like, hey, you're not allowed to have slappers. And then he smacked it out of some alien gangster's hand. And he's like, you're not allowed to do this. You're not supposed to steal these from, like, the sick bay. And it's like, hey, remember slappers from season 1? They're
Wow,
back
I did
again.
not.
Well, more so than that, this is a direct mirror of the attack on Kosh in The Gathering.
Mm-hmm.
This is someone who is under the guise of a friend who is not that person,
And then they put a slapper on your hand, bitch.
using a contact-based poison to take you off the board, which you eventually survive. Like, it is exactly the attack on Kosh in so many angles that I really appreciated that.
Really go with what works, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. With this sequence, it is a big standout because of a few factors that we don't often get in this show. The taking down of Sheridan. One, there's some music playing in this dive bar. There's like this sexy, weird kind of slow song happening in the background. But I don't even think we see the person singing it, really. It's just happening. So the atmosphere is already set from that. And then it's a darkly lit bar, and they slow down the frame rate. The lighting goes into all of these different directions.
Got the stills as well.
Yeah, they're inserting like photo stills. Like they took photographs of Sheridan getting his ass kicked and just shoved them in there at random points. It's strobe light effect is going on. And this is one of the things I really have come to appreciate about Babylon 5 on our current watch through. And it makes me think of some of the sci-fi contemporaries like Star Trek, which is even in its final days, like in its, 4th season to 5th season, they keep coming up with creative visuals to present to us, to give us what we understand to be a scene that you would see before, but they just amplify its weight. So, this is an example of that, where Michael Vejar just said, like, hey, I want to do all of these crazy things for this scene where we just beat the shit out of Sheridan and capture him. Well, in season 1, you would not have had this exist at all in the way it's presented. And I love that B5 keeps finding new things to do right up to the last moment, because most shows like your Star Trek, it's like they get comfortable and then maybe a special episode will happen and then they'll do something visually creative. But Babylon 5 always keeps like shoving something in an episode or something in every few episodes that just makes it memorable. Like I always remember this particular episode for this sequence, and later on when Bester enters the picture and we talk to him because of purely just how it's presented on the screen. It's like that's burned into my brain.
The lighting in that scene. We'll talk about that when we get there. But I do, since we're talking about the stills, I have to mention, Ryan. You know who took those photos?
Who?
The same person who did all of the promotional photography stills for the series. Which means the person who took the photos for your morphing menus also took these stills in the show.
Yes.
That's where the art comes from.
So strike against this episode because there was no morphing effect from the stills to one another. So
you could have done that at the end with Garibaldi and Bester, and it could have been really striking.
Oh yeah, a missed
Animorphs,
opportunity.
the two of them. Yeah,
There are a lot of close-ups of faces too in this episode that are just really delicious for face of the enemy.
Yeah, there's a lot in this scene too. A guy gets Marty Jannetty through a window, which I really appreciated.
Right through the glass window of the barber shop.
Ivanova arrives just as a broadcast from ISN comes in, with cuts of Sheridan getting beaten up over the lines about how well he's being treated. Of course.
That's great. That's classic B5. That is your classic cutting between stuff, the dramatic irony, and
They love it.
I love her. I love that ISN anchor. She's such a piece of work, and I haven't confirmed it, but I think she was a real news person because I've seen her resume of work, and she always plays news anchors, which is often what happens when you get real life news anchors to do bits in movies. I haven't confirmed it, but if you look at her stuff, she's always playing news anchors. And so I assume that's the case because there's been other times in Babylon 5 where they've done that. There was one in a previous episode where the news anchor woman on ISN was a different one from this woman, and she in real life got in trouble a little while ago for having a romantic and sexual affair with Jeff Bezos. And she's a Fox News person. Is hey, she's in B5 too. Fun fact. Fun fact, her and Scott Adams are in Babylon 5.
Oh yeah, we just had that one. Delenn wakes up in a cold sweat over this as well, as we cut over to Garibaldi at Edgar's mansion on Mars. Clark sends Garibaldi his thanks and compliments, and Garibaldi just wants the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
Edgar's complies, as he and Morrissey reveal the whole plot. The problem long-term is telepaths. Edgar explains all the secrecy, as if the telepaths knew what he was planning, he'd be dead in 5 minutes. I was really disappointed when I time-stamped this at 25:54, and when I checked the clock again later when it was appropriate to do so, it had been 33 minutes.
No.
It was so close to being an accurate statement. I love it when shows will do stuff like that in the editing where it's I'll be dead in 5 minutes, and then 5 minutes later of runtime they're dead. That is just chef's kiss for me.
I love when that stuff kind of happens. One of my favorite tricks is, so what are you going to do? Shoot me? And then they get shot. That's one of my favorites as well. This is a great little scene here because I know for myself, and Rachel, we discussed this on our show, Garibaldi's arc has always been a tricky one to revisit because it's once you know what everything is about, it can feel a little bit slow and plotting because it's okay, it's all tension. But I actually really appreciated Edgar's on Watch Through more. And so getting to see him here talk about why he hates the telepaths, what the problem is and what his solution is. Not only was it just it's a great reveal, but it feels like the ultimate culmination of a lot of the stances and viewpoints we've seen from multiple factions within this series. He starts talking about stuff in the way the Shadows talk about things with genetic purity and this hierarchy here and dominance, but he also has a very Vorlon solution to it. It's here's the clinical way of doing it here, but he also has all of these, anti-telepath things that we've seen even Garibaldi from The Gathering express about things. And so it's great to, obviously when you're first time viewing it, get the answers to, what the hell is this corporate tycoon all about? But as someone coming back to it, I like it from an ideological and thematic standpoint of how it just is just adding more and more to the nuances and complexity of the bigotry that lives in this universe, because Babylon 5 deals with bigotry and fascism and whole multitude of things like that, but there's a series of different notes it plays with that rather than just...
It's a melody rather than being one note.
It doesn't suffer from that Star Wars thing where it's like, Nazis,
Yeah.
bad. You got it.
I mean, well,
Yeah.
speaking of, he does drop an incredibly unsubtle reference to the Holocaust by saying the telepath problem will be solved. Just in case you had any reservations if whether or not Edgar's was evil, after you find out he's just a corrupt pharmaceuticals billionaire who is literally a controlling stakeholder in an oligarchy hiding behind the facade of democracy. Like, if that wasn't enough for you,
But
now
give
you
him
get the
credit.
genocide in too.
Give him credit. He himself had to stop for a moment because even he recognized that he
Yeah.
was
He's
sounding
like,
like a Nazi.
Yeah.
He's like, the telepath...
damn it.
Yeah, the telepath... and then he decided,
Uh-oh.
the telepath
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go with it. You're in too deep to back out now, Garibaldi.
I think I read somewhere that the actor himself, that was like him pausing because he had a moment of like, wow, this is kind of fucked up, because I think he was a Jewish actor. And so I think
Yes.
he was like, oh, like there was just a moment where he caught himself and then it just proceeds to go forward. And it makes a scene work because, it's great to sum up Edgar's like how you did, but they still managed to find a way of making him a person because like he believes this.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's still humanity, even though his ideology is inhumane.
Yes, and there's like with a lot of these fucking evil ideologies that Babylon 5 has, there's a certain rationale and reasoning behind it, but it still removes the morality from it all because he wants to make the telepaths into a slave race. Not only does he fear them, as a capitalist, he wants to profit off of them. He's like, you pay me for the cure. You work for me. You're indentured. Unlike the telepaths of now, right, Lita, who you're not even allowed to have your own quarters because you don't pay us enough? Lita, who saved us from a war an episode or two before? Fuck you, Lita. You're one of ours. But you're one of ours. Like, I think about that a lot. Like, in this episode, we even had that scene a moment ago where Lita's like, yeah, so the Psy-Corps made me do horrible things that I regret, and now I'm doing this, in which I'm doing it for you guys, a bunch of horrible things that I will deeply regret, because I have no choice, which is something interesting, too, because Bester brings that up as well, like, us telepaths, we're caught in the middle.
I don't think Bester ever has felt caught in the middle, but yes, as a subspecies, I think race might actually be the proper term there. Race is something that gets misused a lot when talking about people. Most people use race when they actually mean ethnicity, but race might actually be applicable here.
Yeah, they talk about this is Homo superior versus Homo sapien.
That
Right,
would
with-
be incorrect, though, because that would be a different species. And
Well,
what
okay.
defines a species in biological taxonomy is the ability to breed together. So if telepaths could not have children with non-telepaths, that would work. You'd get a new species name like Homo superior instead of Homo sapien. I did research.
I think Bester still thinks of himself as Homo superior.
For sure.
Great title.
Yeah, well, I
Yeah.
mean, Magneto rocked that shit for decades, so.
Oh, yeah. Of course he did. And the magnitude of their plan is really great, too, because he has made the virus, but he's also Edgar's, but he's also made the cure. And it's this nice little, hey, Garibaldi, do you remember that one really boring episode where you had to save this from some angry telepaths? Well, now it matters. So here you go. That's a nice little beat of continuity. And I also like that he turns to Garibaldi and says, you don't have a problem with this, do you? And Jerry Doyle absolutely nails the delivery of this of, no, I don't, actually. I think everything you say is completely correct and moral and right. And it's like, yeah. And we know Garibaldi's kind of amplified, but I'm like, but Garibaldi does think like that. That's the thing, is Garibaldi sucks. He's an awful person. And everything that he does in this episode is because he sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bester says, I just amplified you.
Yeah.
I just changed you to be more you.
Yeah. That's all it took. Which we get in a moment here. Garibaldi has to stay in the compound for his own safety now. Elise overhears all this. Garibaldi pulls out a tooth. It's got a tracker in it. Garibaldi sneaks out, gets on a train, waits, and he is just catatonic. Lise comes on board. He tells her to go home, and then Bester gets on the train, and it starts to move.
Lise, everyone. Can we give it up for Lise? What a great character she is. Such a nuanced female character. She says, hey, look, do I agree with my evil husband? Yeah, he has some points, of course, but I think he's taking it a little too far, a little too scary, and I'm just a girl. What do I do? Help me, Garibaldi, my strong man. And then he says, go home. And so she, I guess, I don't know, goes to the mall? I don't know where she
I
goes.
haven't. It's like, I can't make a decision on my own. No.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to cling to someone else.
Yes, I have to. She runs off to France. That's her home.
Yeah. She's like
Look,
a
we have a
barnacle.
real thing on our show. Like every time Lise shows up, we sarcastically clap and be like, "Hey, everyone, we love Lise," because I think she's one of the most like two-dimensional characters in this series.
True.
And she's supposed to be important. And I think every now and then they'll give her one thing that's like deep, but then you get this episode where it's like Scooby-Doo, where she's literally around the corner with her hands around her cheeks, listening to them discuss evil shit. And she's like, oh no. And it's like, she's right there, guys. Come on. And then she gets on the train and she's like, Garibaldi, you're my former lover and partner. You'll save me from the evil that I heard you openly say you support. What an idiot. Like, why did she go to him? He just stood there agreeing with Nazis. Like, come on.
Sounds like Garibaldi to me.
So Bester deep scans Garibaldi and basically gets caught up on the last little bit of everything from him. And the lighting we get in this scene. Like, well, one, Ryan, when I messaged you and I'm like, hey, back half season 5, pick an episode, you sent me a screen cap of this lighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back half of season 4. What do you want, Ryan? Here's a picture of Bester's little beady eyes.
Yeah.
Which, for my own amusement, on the app we use to discuss this, I changed the profile pic of whatever my account is to his beady little mouth and eyes. It's just the lighting makes Walter Koenig come across as even more of a like creep. Because he plays this scene so like malevolent and cold and calculating as usual, but since we're zooming in on his lips and his eyes, there's just something so gross about Bester during all of this. Like, he is
uncomfortably intimate.
Yes, and he's just delivering on the sleaze of it all. Like, he is getting off on telling Garibaldi how he has ruined his life profoundly,
Just like,
and that you lose.
And you're gonna stay in the ditch that I left you in.
Yes, but I'm a nice guy. I have mercy, of course, so I'll make it so that you're aware of how evil you've been.
It's
Ha ha.
definitely not because I want to see you suffer more.
Yeah. This is a
You
massive
bigot.
loose end.
For sure. And I mean, it is the loose end that I imagine in our Psychor book 3, when we get to it, will be tied up.
Well, he has countermeasures. He has his Asimov principle.
Yeah.
But the lighting in this, to me, the thing I think of when I see lighting like this more than anything else is actually Star Trek, the original series. They would do lighting and shots like this all the time. And so to see Walter Koenig being someone from that show in lighting like this as well, there's like a whole other layer of like, this is how things were, you know, going on to what he's saying. That's just like this unspoken, just felt evil type of nostalgia that I don't have words for, that just makes this whole thing so much more impactful to me.
It feels like The Prisoner as well, which is obviously a big touchstone point for this series, and that would have a lot of these visuals.
Yeah.
But are you guys a fan of the big reveal, which is Bester captured Garibaldi, and for his big chess move play, it's like, hey, the Shadows wanted to manipulate you, but then I got you instead, and so I'm manipulating you because I know that there's some kind of conspiracy against my telepaths, and so my plan is I'm just going to amplify every attribute that makes you, but up to 11, and isolate you from everyone you know, and then in the hopes of you now joining Edgar's and then snafuing his entire conspiracy. Are you guys a fan of it?
Yes. Definitively yes. I think that Bester is the type to not put all of his eggs in one basket. And so I don't think that he was expecting Garibaldi to get Edgar's at all. Even he says, it's like, when you resigned your commission, that was unexpected. You know, he knew he would get something valuable eventually, and that was enough for him to ruin Garibaldi's life.
Yeah, I find this hard to understand. When I watched it the first time, I did not understand the whole plot with Garibaldi. It did not make sense to me. It was so convoluted, I didn't get it. I wonder now, though, too, if he also manipulated things in a way to get Lise closer to Edgar's. Because that's the linchpin to get Garibaldi close to Edgar's, is that Lise is there. So is there some other kind of, or is that just another lucky, happy coincidence?
Yeah, that's the thing. There are a few, even in this scene where he explains everything, you get the flashbacks, you get some scenes you never saw before. Hey, look, it's Harlan Ellison as a Psychop.
Yes.
Hi, Harlan, how are you doing? You seem like a happy man who thinks that all writers deserve to get fucking paid, damn it, for everything they do. And I agree with you. They do deserve to pay you for any piece of media they put on the Babylon 5 DVDs. But there's this moment where it's like, yeah, and you quit your job. I didn't expect that. And it's like, oh, okay. And then later he's like, we'll give you little messages to nudge you where we wanted you to. And then they show the psychedelic message that happened right before he quit his job, which we inferred as, they've given him a little thing to make him quit his job. But then in this, it's like, I didn't expect that. But then also visually, they're showing us, hey, remember that one time we really saw them nudge him?
Right.
Well, I guess it was coincidentally not related to him then quitting his job. I don't know. It's just one of those, it's like, it's a nice piece of editing and all of that if you don't remember, like, the psychedelic message when it played. But I do. And I'm like, but okay, so if you didn't expect him to do that, then what were you expecting when you nudged him, I guess? I don't know. I like it, though, because it says that the show is aware of how awful of a person Garibaldi can be.
Yeah.
Because he has been framed as like, but he's on our side, and he's a good guy. But he's been an awful cop. Like, he's a bad cop. He's said so many horrible things. Literally, when in season 2, he was contemplating whether or not to take the job back, the only reason he took the job back was because he is an extremely paranoid man, and that worked. And he said, well, I should do this job because no one else can do it because there's no one as paranoid as me. And it's like, oh, that's right. There is no one else like that. And so Bester agrees and just used all of that against him. And the difference is in season 4, he doesn't have any of those real likable qualities to him that excuses him from the awful man he's been throughout most of the show. He doesn't have the ability of restraint. So any of the noble character qualities we've come to appreciate of Garibaldi were stripped away because these ones have taken over so much. And I think that is brilliant. I love that. But I'm very much like Laura. When I first heard this, I was like, wait, how does this work? Okay, so let me get a flow chart out and try and figure this out, because this is the whole, fourth act is just Bester talking.
Yeah.
It's a lot of talking. A lot of
It's
lips.
true.
A lot of big, well-lit lips. Okay, where are we at?
We're leaving the train. Garibaldi, freaks out
Yes.
when he starts to realize everything that's happened to him.
Yeah, he screams as he comes to. And then we move over to the White Star, with Ivanova tells Corwin that Garibaldi's FaceTime requests are to be ignored, to shoot him on sight if he rolls into Space TSA.
Fair.
Ivanova quotes Sinclair here, not Sheridan.
JMS admits to faults in the Lurker's Guide. He's like, look,
Does he?
if everything was
It was
perfect,
perfect.
it would be boring, wouldn't it? That's what he said, something like that.
Come on, give me
Come
a
on.
break.
One of my favorite moments of acting from Jason Carter happens in this scene, which is him saying, Susan. He says it so naturally, also on Susan's side. Of course you would want to shoot Garibaldi. He betrayed you. He's an absolute monster. But Marcus obviously is a little bit more caring about people and cares about Susan having taken such a drastic approach to things. But just the way Jason
Yeah.
Carter delivers that line of just Susan, I'm also like, oh yeah, Susan, you can't be that
You also
cold.
you feel his love for her in the way that he says it.
Oh yes, yes indeed.
Over at the Edgar's compound, we see it trashed. Garibaldi holds Morrissey as he passes, finds the virus and antiviral are gone, and he starts looking for Lise.
Because he loves Lise.
He does love Lise.
He does. What? Tell me why.
Why does he love Lise? Because she's the only person who actually pays any attention to him.
Does she?
Because it's clear to him that he can fuck up as much as he wants with her, and she'll
Right.
still take him back because
Okay.
he's an
Yeah,
abusive asshole.
that I buy
if we're
more.
being real
Okay,
about
next-
it,
Next
Yes.
question. Why does she love him?
that I can't answer.
Low self-esteem.
We could go into fucking backstory about the graph. More than we could say, why does Lise love him and why does he love
Clearly,
Lise?
she has awful taste in men because we have Garibaldi,
Mhm.
we have
Fran.
Fran,
Fucking
and Edgar's.
Yeah.
Like all objectively trashy human beings.
Yeah.
I just
Like,
I've always had a struggle with the fact that she's with Edgar's. It does seem a little neat, and it's like, oh, I get, yeah, Lise, what's her deal? I'll never.
she's like landed billionaire.
We'll never know. That's the thing. We'll never know what Lisa's
You
deal
can't
is.
get your kid back.
She can't get her kid back either. You know, she's on the run now because the boys are after her. I don't know. I want to see that scene where she's like, okay, where do I run off to? Because I'm like, with what I've gathered,
Yeah.
Lise wouldn't think of a clever place to go. So,
No,
Well, and Mars is just domes.
Yeah.
yeah.
we know where she ends up.
But no, I actually don't. So in this episode, it's like the ISN is saying like, hey, by the way, everything's fine. Everything's great. By the way, Lise is missing. But hey, that's fine.
Yeah.
And she looks at me, the
work
audience, and
out.
says, you care about Lise, right?
No, but we see her with the gangsters in a future episode, remember?
I don't have a clue what Lisa's ideals are. So when she comes in
Yeah.
this episode and she's like, oh no, I agree with my Nazi husband, but also I think it's a little extreme. It's like, who are you, Lise?
Right.
You ask, who are you? That's the biggest question. Who are you, Lise? And what do you want?
ISN's reports end with Garibaldi is to thank for Sheridan's capture. They used the season 3 theme headshot for his photo here. Do you think that means that those headshots in the theme are like, those are real in-universe photos now?
Yeah.
That has implications I'm curious about. Like, is this a yearbook photo they took? Is that where they got the ambassadors lined up too?
Station ID, maybe?
Oh, that
Yeah,
makes
and when
more
you take
sense.
station ID, you know what you do? Some of you turn to look at the camera and some of you don't. That's what always bugs me
Yeah.
about season 3 opener is some of them turn and then some of them don't. And it really bugs me to this day. It's like, why? And also some of them emote and some of them don't. It's like Delenn gives a little nod. Londo's like, yes, I'm an asshole. And Jakar looks like he's just finished crying. And then Garibaldi's like, yeah, it's me, Garibaldi. What do you want? And then you have Zach is like, I'm also in this show. It's like, thanks, Zach.
Question for the group. Has anyone ever done anything fun with a photo ID? Have you gotten away with anything? I had a college ID where I was side profile giving a thumbs up. Well, that took about 20
I like
minutes to get through, but I managed.
That's beautiful. I've never really had to. No, I've never gone that extreme. I haven't thought about it honestly. I'm lucky that I'm not one of those people who blink when they get their photo taken.
Oh, that's me all the time. Everything is blinks everywhere.
Well, that's the episode. How do we feel about this one? Rachel and Ryan, we'll toss it to you on our scale of Babylon's 1 to 5. Where do you rate this episode?
Well, Rachel's pointing to me because she's gonna try and
I'm
counsel
going
me.
to declare it is yum yum, which
That's our
is
rating.
our rating scale
Okay.
of yum being bad and yum yum being good. It's definitely a
Okay.
yum yum, but I haven't settled on the number of stations yet.
Yeah, this is
I am
very.
gonna
You can do
give-
whatever you want. Like,
I'm playing. I'm on your turf. I play by your rules. Okay. want to give this a 5 because I love the direction of it. Michael Vejar really goes out of his way with this. I think the acting is great. This is some of the best of material. You just hand off. You can trust Walter Koenig
Yeah.
to deliver that massive monologue and make it seem so playful and just energetic. But, and I know this all makes sense for the show, but I'm like, God damn it, Sheridan's stupid.
Yes.
Like, I
Yeah.
can't, like, a part of me is like,
Yeah.
I know he is that dumb. I know it's like been built into the show that he would do these things because he loves his dad so much. It's not unfounded, but a part of me is like a Vonovo. I'm like, no, John, don't do this. But you have to because of plot. So I'm just going to land on a solid 4 out of 5 with this, because there are a few moments where I have to suspend my disbelief of some of the choices these people make. And again, I understand that a lot of them are founded in what we've done before, but also, like, even then, I'm like, sometimes John's naivete can be a little too much for me to take. And I love him.
It's just like, give the Boy Scout vibes without the decision making of a Boy Scout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I end up at a 4 as well, to play by the rules.
I never do.
I wanted to be like, it's 4 Babylon stations and an Epsilon 5.
There's 5 epsilons now.
Yep.
It's epsilon 3, but there's too many Draals down there. It's nothing but Draals all the way down. Oh my god.
I was
JMS,
originally gonna do
write
a
that book, JMS. It's nothing but Draals all the way down. So then we can
I
actually have
meant to
Draal
say 4
massive.
Babylons, 'cause it's 4.5.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that works.
Very clever.
4.5
Yeah,
is...
I've given 4.5.
I've definitely used the 0.5. I think I had one person say something to me once. It's like, hey, you said you were going to do this. And I'm all like, fractions. I don't give a fuck.
Sometimes you need a little more nuance than just 5 like ratings
Yeah.
can give you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is above average. That's kind of where I start, is like, okay, 3 is average, right? Because it's right in the middle. And this is above average. So for me, I feel like I've given out a lot of 4s lately. Is that true, Xhafer?
I don't keep track.
I have
It's
given
season
out a lot
4.
of 4.
Yeah, it's season 4. I think that's a pretty easy yes.
You're
Yeah,
thinking
it's
4 for 4.
It's an above average season, I think. So this all tracks. All the math checks out. But I agree.
5. Straight up.
Ooh.
I have no apprehension, no qualm
No
in
qualms.
saying this is a 5 out of 5. Sheridan's a dumbass. Sure, Sheridan's always a dumbass. Like,
I know.
Yeah.
the mistake of this episode is not listening to Ivanova, and he gets punished for that, as he should. So,
Yes.
Lots of people make that mistake.
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
If I could do this somehow, this would be the episode I would use to prove to people who are naysayers that this is a good television show. I can't use this episode because it is good enough to hook someone, but it also ruins that entire story
Yeah.
arc with Garibaldi. And so it'd be a
Yeah,
real
for sure.
it'd be a real shitty thing to do as like a friend to get someone
Yeah.
to watch this show. But like, no, trust me, you have to watch this show. Watch this episode. If you don't like this, then just give up on it. But this is definitive proof that Babylon 5 is excellent television in 30-minute form. And it's such a long form show that we don't get a lot of that. This stands right up there with me with Babylon Squared, War Without End. Like, this is just a fucking absolute fantastic episode. Loved it.
Glad to hear it. Do you have an episode that matches what you like that you wish that you could do with this one for people?
Like, just an episode to watch to show people this is a great show that isn't
Yeah.
a terrible introduction.
Yeah.
Mm.
Maybe
'Cause it's not
Babylon
The Gathering.
Squared. That's early enough and introduces a lot of mystery without resolving anything. I would be apprehensive to do anything outside of season 1, because if you see Delenn for
Yeah.
5 seconds, that's going to just ruin everything.
True.
I'd feel like with that regard, maybe, depending on the friend, maybe a late delivery from Avalon might be a good one for a handful
Yeah,
of
I
people.
like that one.
I remember the one for me before I got the first season on DVD. We had them recorded off the TV, and the one I saw that was like, oh, this is a cool show. Like I'd seen one or two other episodes, but the one I saw that was like, oh, this is cool, comes the Inquisitor. I'm like, oh yeah, crazy torture episode with Jack the Ripper. I'm on board. Fuck yeah.
Now we know what you're about.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, give me torture episodes. They're fun. Oh, we'll have one soon again. But it's always hard, right? Because you want to go outside of it, but then there's a part of me that's like, man, and the Rock cried out in our hiding place just slaps.
It does.
That's such a good fucking episode too.
Such a good episode. I love it. It's so hard to pick something in the show because everything builds on itself.
Yeah. Which is why I think this episode is good for that, because we get so much flashback to those things that you could probably sit down mostly unawares and feel like you're, at the very least, have some semblance of what's going on. Once again, it's all payoff, so it's a terrible episode to introduce the show to someone to.
Right.
Just for extra credit, do any of you have an episode that you use to introduce other people to shows that you would want to shout out real quick? Any other show?
Oh, that's a wonderful question you've asked there. With Babylon 5, actually, I actually know the one I use. I use the Parliament of Dreams. I think that's a really
that's a good
great
one.
early episode. I think it's the first B5 episode that's unabashedly fun.
Mhm.
Like, it's a fun episode, but it still has unique selling points of the series of diplomacy, religion, multiple alien cultures being at the center point of it all. Sinclair with his human stuff, with his romance, but it's a fun episode. Like, that's the one I always say is like, if you are watching B5 for the first time and you're going through it and you don't feel like you're at all jiving with the series, buy something like Parliament of Dreams. I could see it being a bit tough for you, especially in that first season. And then I like episodes that test people, like where you going to land on believers, like those type. I love those type of episodes. It's like, are you a fan of Who Monitors the Birds from Space Above and Beyond? Are you going to be that person who's like, I don't like the boring, quiet episode. I like those type of ones. That's like, are we going to be friends if you do not like this episode? And that's
It's like a knockout question.
Yeah.
That's a knockout. But yeah, I always think of those. But yeah, those intro ones. I mean, to me too, Red Dwarf's pilot episode is one where it's like, if you don't like Red Dwarf's pilot episode, don't bother. One of the best opening episodes. That's one of its best episodes. Like, such a tight episode. And so,
Do you feel that way about Garth Marenghi's first episode as well? Yeah.
If you don't like Garth Marenghi's Dark Places first episode, then don't bother. It's so good. But Rachel, is there a Gilmore Girls episode that you're like, okay, guys, this is the one that you could, give a little hop on to on the choo-choo train?
Well, like, the pilot for that is also pretty solid. Like, I definitely don't encourage people to, like, skip ahead to a certain episode. I'm like, do you like the pitch of this episode? If you do, start from the start. With a lot of things, I think of the episodes that are the exception to the rule instead of, like, the show at its peak.
It's also sometimes a bit difficult because there are some shows, like, say, with a big legacy or big burden, like, say, a Star Trek or a Babylon 5.
Breaking Bad.
No, well, yeah, I guess, but, like, ones like this where it's like, it feels like it's intimidating to crack them open because it's like, whoa, what happens if I don't like it? And so I think of those ones where it's like, what was the episode for those where I got won over? Like, with something like Battlestar Galactica, like, I watched that and I didn't like it when it first aired. And then I came back to it and I'm like, okay, what do I like? And it's like, literally, it's like the first episode where Dean Stockwell shows up, I would show that to someone. I'm like, what's this episode? It's like, oh, do you mean the season 2 finale? Yes, that's a good episode.
All right. I always use Girl in the Fireplace to introduce people to Doctor Who.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
a good
not
one.
the best episode of even that season, but it's a really good episode, and it does a lot to communicate what you can expect from Doctor Who when it's good.
It's creepy too.
Yeah, it's got just enough. Did you have one, Laura?
I'm just I don't know. I guess I'm just very linear and I have to watch it like from the beginning. I just badger
Same.
people to watch the whole show.
Mhm.
Like, I just badgered someone into watching The Bear at work. and I'm very
That's
proud of
so
myself.
good. I'm like a couple episodes in right
So
now.
good. Oh, you're gonna love it.
Okay.
You're like the third person to mention that show to me in like 2 weeks.
It's a
Oh,
big
you've
one, but
got
I'm very
to.
much the same. Like, and I feel guilty sometimes because, say, I love Star Trek, but I feel bad ever recommending it to people because it's like, oh yeah, by the way, TNG, you're gonna have to slog through like 40 episodes until you get something really good. And it's like, and the first season is racist and sexist and atrocious, but you
Yeah.
know, it will matter later in the most nebulous
Yeah.
way because Tasha Yar.
You can't skip it.
And I feel like that with a lot. The only ones I don't feel like that with Star Trek is the original series. I'm like, that's a solid first season. It's dated, but and Voyager's first season's actually pretty good too. But like, I always feel that it's like, oh, my big nerdy thing. It's like, oh yeah, Babylon 5. Okay, the first season's a little slow,
Yeah.
but you'll get there. When? I don't know. You'll figure it out.
Well, why don't you tell us where we can find you, Yum Yum, and plug anything you want to plug?
Well, Rachel, I'm looking around my room and your room, and where's Yum Yum at, Rachel? Where do people find it? Is it underneath this cushion here? Is it
You can find it in lots of places, but if you want to find the Yum Yum podcast, you can find us on the various social media websites and apps under Yum Yum Pod or Yum Yum Podcast.
We post on there pretty regularly. We like to share some information and trivia points and jokes and memes and stuff. It's a grand old time. We are on all of those podcatchers and podcast sites, including YouTube even. You can find our stuff. Yum Yum Podcast. It's all under that banner. And we are going through Babylon 5, as obviously stated. But we've got a big back catalogue. We've done Star Trek Discovery. That is where the name Yum Yum came from. And if you want more context, which is for kings, by the way, you can just listen to every single episode where we explain where Yum Yum came from and why Discovery is involved and why Academy Award-winning actress Michelle Yeoh is pivotal to the Yum Yum scene. Fun fact, she won her Academy Award literally as soon as she stopped doing Discovery. Isn't that? I don't know if there's a correlation between those two things, something to think about, something to chew on. But we've done Discovery. We have also been releasing our discussions on Space Above and Beyond, which is a short-lived science fiction series, a one-season wonder, very much a show that was ahead of the curve and very much one that if you are a fan of science fiction television, you have not seen it, it is worth checking out in its own right because it did a lot of things that some shows like Battlestar Galactica, Firefly, and The Expanse would get to have the ability to pick up and run with later on. And we are going through that. We've been releasing our episodes on that and just really excited to just get more people into watching that show as well. I've never had it in my life. People until now talk to me about episodes of Space Above and Beyond, but hey, we're talking about on our show, and so that's a reality I have now lived in, which is just so special. So yeah, Yum Yum Podcast, we are on the internet under Yum Yum Podcast.
All right.
Wonderful.
Well, we'll be back next week with Season 4, Episode 18, Intersections in Real Time. Sheridan is tortured by a ruthless Earth official. The Mars Resistance captures Garibaldi. For having a run of very detailed yet incorrect episode descriptions on Vudu, this one is both concise and relatively accurate. So that's nice.
The Garibaldi thing doesn't happen in that.
It doesn't, damn it!
It's all Sheridan, baby.
Is it
we
just,
don't leave
I
that
thought
room.
I thought that was at the, no, okay.
That's the next episode.
It's the next episode. Well, then
That's
they're
the one
still
after.
wrong. Cool.
They're still
Strike
wrong.
3, Voodoo.
In Voodoo, get your shit together. I've
Right.
never used Voodoo, and nor do I want to now that I hear that they get descriptions wrong. Incorrect. You need to read the DVD descriptions. That's where you get factual information. Like one episode we read, they described Londo as haughty, and I got a good chuckle out of that. They're haughty Malari, and I'm like, that's a great word to describe him as,
Yep.
haughty.
It's accurate, yeah.
That wily old Londo was another one too. And I'm like, yes, did Garibaldi write this DVD description himself? That wily Londo.
Well, you know who else is wily? Jeremy Siegel, who composed our lovely theme music. Thank you, Jeremy, for your contribution to our podcast. We truly appreciate it. You can find more of Jeremy's work at jeremysiegel42.bandcamp.com and on various streaming services as Nuclear Jaguar.
And thank you to Angry Duck Time Machine on Instagram for our podcast artwork.
Aaron, thanks for putting the time in and editing this podcast so that we don't have to. Really appreciate that. And finally, listener, thanks for spending the last 60 or so minutes with the four of us. We really appreciate it. Join our community on Discord, whoareyoub5@gmail.com. Send us your Season 4 thoughts. We're going to be putting together our Season 4 recap episode in a couple weeks. So as you're listening to this, the timer is ticking close to getting those into us. Thank you.
Yeah, please.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.